The reason for the gavel is to provide a sound cue for our audiovisual. Welcome to the meeting of the Alameda County Water Board. Roll call, please.
Director Sethy?
Here.
Akbari?
Here.
Gunther?
Here.
Huang? Here. And Weed?
Here. If I could ask former Director Marty Kohler to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have public comments. An opportunity for someone to address the board if there's on items which are not on our agenda. If there's anyone who wishes to. If not, then I will close the public comment portion of the agenda. Next is special recognition of future of the Alameda County Water District Award recipient, Michael Roseman.
Thank you, Mr. President. And for this item, I'd like to hand it off to our Manager of Operations and Maintenance, Steve Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And it gives me great pleasure tonight. Mike, would you step up to the podium while I review some comments that I have written for you. It gives me great pleasure tonight to have this opportunity to introduce Mike Roseman to the Board of Directors and to acknowledge his family who is here tonight in the audience. Mike began his career with the district in May of 2013, and in only 4 short years, he has significantly improved the quality of the maintenance performed on the district's fleet of 168 vehicles and trailers, as well as the work efficiency and management of the garage. Mike came to the district with over 30 years of equipment service and repair experience, working on heavy construction equipment such as large earth-moving equipment, ground support vehicles at airports, and on emergency generators for United Airlines, John Deere, and Detroit Diesel. When Mike started at the district, all of the maintenance inspection and servicing of the district's 5 portable emergency generators was performed by an outside vendor. Mike soon realized the efficiencies and associated cost savings that could be realized if district staff in the garage performed this work instead of the outside vendor. Mike proposed that since the generators are parked near the garage, and because district staff has the knowledge and skills required to perform the inspection and service work, that approximately $600 per month could be saved, and even performing a more comprehensive inspection of the generators and include the inspection of and servicing of the trailers that the generators are mounted on. This approach on performing the maintenance in-house began in June 2015, and since then the district has saved over $14,000. Mike's idea was submitted as part of the district's Future of ACWD Employee Suggestion Program and was evaluated and the cost savings confirmed. As a result of the cost analysis, it was determined that Mike should receive the maximum Future of ACWD program amount of $1,000. In January, Mike received the warrant, and it is now my opportunity to publicly congratulate Mike for his work and to ask him to keep up his good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our opportunity to recognize those you wish and just make a few comments.
I just felt like I was doing my job. That's what you guys pay me for. When they hired me, I felt I brought a skill set with me that I could help make a difference, and hopefully we feel the difference over the long run.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Any comments from the board?
Actually, I would like to make a comment. Even though Mike and I have not really crossed paths before,
but I think you're an example of what's so special about our staff. The feature of ACWD program came about because we're having budget issues that we're raising water rates. So we went to our staff and asked them to come up with ideas on how to help us save money. And it's people like Mike who has the experience and the know-how to come up with the idea and help us to tell our customer that, yes, we're doing the best we can, we're using all our skills, and we're running as lean and as efficient as we can. So thank you. You actually make this look good up here, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Before you run off,
Well, yeah, I'd just like to say, initiative like that really is great. To look at something and say, hey, we could do this better. We could do this, for that matter. That's terrific, and thank you. That's what it's all about, And like you said, I'm just doing my job. I get that, but no, you took that initiative. That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Mike, I just wanted to add that, anytime an employee can make money or save money for the district, it really helps all of our ratepayers. I don't know if you live within the district.
Yes, sir, I do.
That's good. Of course, all of us do up here. And so all of your contributions are really valuable. And I hope you will make a continuing contribution to the community, too. I look forward to seeing you around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
At this time, we have our consent calendar. Is there anyone?
Director
motion to add items to the consent calendar?
We already did public comment.
Have we done public comment?
Yes, we did.
I don't think we did.
I opened it and closed it, but if there's someone who would like to speak to the board, they're more than welcome. Let us know.
Okay.
Now you do public
Is there a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to add items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 to the consent calendar this evening.
I'll second.
Second, roll call, please.
Director Sethy?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Gunther?
Aye.
Huang? Aye. And Weed?
Aye.
I'll move the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second.
Roll call,
Director
please.
Sethy?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Gunther?
Aye.
Huang?
Aye.
And Weed?
Aye. Item 5.7 is a resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month.
And I'm pleased,
I would note that Bob Shaver has been called to work on who's our general manager, to participate in a employee review, hiring review in San Diego, so will not be with us tonight. And Ed Stevenson, our head of engineering, is acting general manager.
and I appreciate that project engineering supervisor is here to fill in for me so that I can fill in for Mr. Shaver. So item 5.7 is a great opportunity to be described by Laura Heides, Special Assistant to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. May is designated as Water Awareness Month in California. For the past 27 years, the district has been a campaign sponsor of Water Awareness Month, which focuses on educating Californians about the importance of water in all facets of their lives by encouraging involvement in water awareness activities on both a local and regional level. Today, we have a special presentation by winners of the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair, and I will turn it over to Shireen Gonzalez to go ahead and introduce them.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and members of the public. I'm honored to be here tonight because, as Laura mentioned, we have a special presentation of two very talented students, award-winning students for the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair. Each year, ACWD, along with 9 other Alameda County water and wastewater agencies, join efforts and funds to honor young scientists with the Regional Excellence in Water Research Award.
It's a special award given at the annual science fair, which took place this year, March 10th through the 12th at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds. Michelle Powell of Union Sanitary District, who is here tonight, presented the awards during the ceremony. More than 207 industry partners participated in the all-day overall judging on Saturday, March 11th. The judges reviewed and considered 22 senior division projects and 17 junior division projects. Tonight, we recognize the excellence in water research first and second place winners in the junior division. I'd also like to mention that the senior division first and second place winners will be recognized at USD's board meeting on Monday, May 22nd. With that, I would like to introduce Thoya Raman, who is a 6th grader at Ardenwood Elementary in Fremont. Thoya is the second place winner in the junior division and will present her project, Removing Salt from Saltwater. Please join me in welcoming Thoya.
It's a shame we have video cameras from the back of the room. Those can only see the back of your presentation.
Yeah, why don't you turn it?
I don't think we'll be able to accomplish both. It's
Oh, good idea. That's okay. It's okay.
we're getting into video recently, and we're learning as we go along.
So my project was about removing salt from salt water to make it drinkable. So I tried 4 different methods, which include desalination using sunlight, desalination using heat on a stove, desalination using mangroves, and desalination using absorption and filtration, where I soaked a material in salt water and then filtered it out to get the water alone. To measure how much salt was being removed, I built a circuit that measured resistance, which I then also converted to conductivity. Desalination with heat and sunlight both produced water samples with resistance similar to tap water and commercial distilled water. And desalination with mangroves didn't really work because there wasn't enough heat to get the water to transpire out of the leaves. And in desalination using absorption and filtration, I tried many different materials, many different household materials, and the only one that showed a decrease in salt was whole wheat flour. So I wanted to find out what in whole wheat flour was causing the decrease in salt. Whole wheat flour is made up of the entire wheat germ, which includes the endosperm, the germ, and the outer shell. And so I tested all 3, and I found out that it was the endosperm that was contributing to the decrease in salt. And the endosperm is made of gluten and starch. So I tested gluten flour, gluten-free flour, and potato starch, and I found that gluten-free flour and potato starch showed the most decrease in salt, so I could conclude that starch was what was contributing to the decrease in salt in the whole wheat flour.
Wow, fantastic.
That is impressive.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you go to school and what your interests are?
I'm a 6th grader at Ardenwood Elementary in Fremont, and I like math and science.
Fantastic. What are your hope in the future?
Well, I like robotics, and I also like biology and chemistry, so something like that.
Would you like to work for a water district?
Maybe.
Have you had a tour of our laboratory?
No.
Maybe something can be worked out.
I actually think she should see our D-cell facility and our lab. If you like chemistry, you'll like our lab. It's not the most fancy commercial lab, but we have some pretty interesting tests that we run. And that was pretty amazing project. Your thought process is pretty impressive in terms of process elimination and isolating the problem and figure out the results. Good job.
Thank you.
You know, very nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very nicely done.
Hey, girls could be really good scientists and engineers. I'm an engineer.
I'm an engineer.
Definitely possible.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And do you want to recognize your parents? Is there someone in your family members, would you like to recognize them?
My dad is here and he helped me with a lot of my project.
Right. That's fantastic. And teachers are, okay, that's good.
My teacher is here too.
You have to recognize the teachers. What is her name?
Miss Petrie.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tree.
We will also recognize the students, President Weed, at the end with the certificates and checks, as well as the teachers.
We'll have an opportunity later. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a second presentation.
Second, I would like to introduce Rohan Panjikaran, who's a 7th grader at the Stratford School in Fremont. Rohan is the first place winner in the junior division, and he will present his project, Water Usage Alert System. So please join me in welcoming Rohan.
Hi, my name is Rohan, and I would first like to thank you all for this opportunity to present in front of you, because it's the board of directors. Yeah. So I built a water usage alerting system. So there are various other ways to also check your water usage, such as water meters, but people usually don't pay attention to numbers. But I noticed that people do pay attention to visual and audio alerts, such as the sound of the microwave beeping, like that. So then I used LEDs and a speaker to speaker to play the audio file and the LEDs to attract attention of the user. So I use a Hall effect water flow sensor, an Arduino microcontroller, a speaker, SD card reader, and I also use a breadboard. So first I connected 3 LEDs onto the breadboard, and I connected them as output to the Arduino microcontroller, and then I also recorded 3 audio files onto the SD card, and then I placed it in the SD card readers, and I connected the SD card reader as input to the Arduino microcontroller, and I also connected the Hall effect water flow sensor as output. So the Hall effect water flow sensor, it works when water passes through it. It generates a pulse when a certain amount of water has passed through it, and that is received by the Arduino microcontroller. So then I wrote a program that will calculate how much water has passed when it has received a certain amount of pulses. So when it receives when 1 liter of water has passed through the Hall effect water flow sensor, then it'll turn on the first LED and it'll play the first audio file, which will say, "So far you have consumed 1 liter of water." And similarly for when 2 liters of water have been consumed, it'll play the second audio file saying, "So far you have consumed 2 liters of water," and also the second LED will turn on. So I tested this 3 times, and I found out that my alerts came out at a 2% deviation. So when 1 liter of water had actually passed, it wasn't the alert came almost at the exact time. Maybe next time I will also add an LCD display, because I can't have a lot of LEDs. If someone consumes 20 liters of water, I can't have 20 LEDs on. So instead of that, I would have one LED and one LCD display along with the speaker, and whenever 1 liter of water has been consumed, it'll play an audio file, and it'll also blink the LED, which will get the attention of the user, and then the user can look at the LCD display to see how much water he or she has consumed. And yeah.
Your final conclusion on this study?
Well, well, I noticed like also the Hall. So I was thinking like how could this be implemented in real life? So then the Hall effect water flow sensor can be placed in the pipe system, and then the LEDs can be like it's like easy like to put inside the home anywhere, and it can easily track the water usage. So.
Thank you very much. Are there questions to the board on the presentation?
Well, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself as well?
I'm from Stratford School, and I like soccer, and like I study a lot too. So
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be an astronomer. Stars.
Fantastic. Is there anyone you'd like to recognize who came with you tonight?
Well, my parents and my teacher, Miss Bustos. Also, my dad helped me a lot on this project too, and my mom helped me with support. So, yeah.
Great. And they're very proud of you, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Wow, that's impressive. And with that, I would like to invite President Weed to come down, who will present the awards to both the students as well as their teachers who are with us tonight. First, we're going to go ahead and call up Thoya Rahman. President Weed, if you'd like to come.
Thank you.
Thoya is receiving the second place in the junior division and a check.
Thank you very much.
Thoya receives a check for $300 as well as a certificate for second place. And Thoya's teacher also receives a check for $100. President, we will also present the first place winner in the junior division, Rohan Pajikaran, who will receive a check for $400 and his certificate. And Rohan's teacher, Faye Marie Bustos, who will also receive a check for $100 and a certificate.
This is family of Aziz. This is never so. This is always a community of
So while everybody's getting back into their seat, I just want to say, Rohan, good job. It's pretty rare that you get to think about the practical implementation and scaling up. And actually, I don't know if you noticed it or not, your invention is totally 100% ADA compliant. Great job.
Thank you. Other comments?
Well, I think we might be looking at two of our future board members right here. So I'm excited to see that. And Rohan, I don't know if you know, a version of what you're actually suggesting is something that we're considering as well in terms of implementing. And Thoya, we do have a desal plant here, so a lot of what you guys are talking about is stuff that we're paying attention to as well.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, then we move on to item 5.8.
Director, we have a resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Please, go ahead.
to read the resolution, to read the recommendation is Ms. Heides.
All right. By motion, the recommendation for this item is by motion, adopt a resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month.
Thank you. And
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Directors
And-
Sethy,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
and Weed.
Aye. Thank you. The item 5.8 is a resolution honoring Greg Watson upon his retirement from district service.
Yeah, and following that good news story, we have a bit of a bittersweet story here tonight. For me personally and the Engineering and Technology Services Department and many throughout the district. So I wanted to keep this item and read it myself. So Greg Watson, who's here in the audience tonight with family and also supported by former Director Kohler and others. Greg Watson will retire from the Alameda County Water District on June 9, 2017 after 27 years of district service. Greg joined the Alameda County Water District as a junior electrical engineer on June 7, 1990. Prior to joining the district, Greg had amassed considerable experience over 11 years as a field service engineer working for Westinghouse Electric Corporation and ASEA Brown Boveri, a multinational power and automation company. Shortly after he joined the district, Greg was promoted to Engineer 2 in 1991 and Engineer 3 in 1995. Given his background in field service, Greg was regularly called upon to assist others in troubleshooting and maintaining the electrical and mechanical systems of district facilities, in addition to his regular project management duties, and he quickly became a sought-after resource for his experience district-wide. Trained as a mechanical engineer and licensed as an electrical engineer, Greg applied his broad technical expertise to various projects and programs throughout the district. Greg contributed his expertise to ensure the success of many district projects such as the Paseo Padre Booster Station, diesel generator installations at the Maury Wellfield and the Peralta Tyson Wellfield, Whitfield Booster Station electrical upgrades, Headquarters Water Quality Laboratory design and construction, Fish Screen Number 1, Kaiser Fish Screen and Shin Gravity Diversion expansion, multiple ARP well upgrade projects for the Newark Desalination Facility, the Appian Tank Seismic Upgrade Project, and the Alameda Creek Fish Passage Improvement Projects. As project manager, Greg successfully led numerous other design and construction projects of various sizes throughout the district, such as Seven Hills Booster Station electrical upgrades, Washington Booster Station electrical upgrades, Headquarters and Lobby Public Access improvements, the Newark Desalination Facility Phase 2 expansion project, and the Rubber Dam Number 1 fabric replacement project. Because he worked on and managed a wide variety of projects throughout the district over the course of his career, Greg developed an in-depth knowledge of the operation of the district's distribution system and many of the district's facilities. This knowledge has not only been an asset to the projects he managed, but also served to benefit his peers in the project engineering division and throughout the district as he actively collaborated and shared his knowledge with others. Greg has consistently performed his duties with the highest level of competence, integrity, and dedication. He will be greatly missed by his many friends and colleagues at the district. So staff's recommendation is, by motion, adopt a resolution honoring Greg Watson and expressing appreciation for his 27 years of dedicated service to the district.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler?
directors and staff members, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. As a past board member, Greg has been a significant part of our engineering committee meetings that we participated in, as we do today. And I can say for myself is that I left the meetings smiling, knowing that we had the data, the information, correct information before us to make sound decisions as a board. And it was a pleasure to have Greg on our staff. But now I'm going to read from a script here. Greg Watson has been a key contributor handling complex engineering projects. Just a few. Number one, the upgrade of the Plant 2 hydro turbine generators that generate more power than the facility uses. Number two, overseeing the construction of the Newark D-cell plant, the jewel of ACWD's operation. Number three, the installation of the Rubber Dam 3, which had many challenges, specifically the timeline that we had to deal with, plus the structural difficulties that we had to deal with as a board. Please note that the engineering staff were all an invaluable component to successfully completing these mentioned projects. As a past board member, their contributions were greatly appreciated by us. Why am I mentioning these highlighted projects? As Jim Gunther, Director Gunther, and I participated in the engineering committee meetings, it was always evident that Greg was prepared to present the complexities of all his assigned projects, such as timelines, options, costs, and concerns. I cannot speak for Director Gunther, but I would leave the meetings, like I said, feeling confident that Greg and the district's interests were protected. The outcome of the monthly engineering meetings were greatly valued as a board member. Greg, I want to thank you for your professional contributions to ACWD. Your contributions has propelled ACWD to a standard other water districts hope to meet in the future. I wish your retirement will be one of personal fulfillment. And thank you for your service of 27 years. Thank you, Greg.
Greg, this is your opportunity to receive a presentation, if you'd like to say a few words.
Obviously nothing written down, but I've had the opportunity to, times past, to stand before the board and staff here, and I've appreciated that time. As an engineer, you tend to look at the numbers a lot of times, and I realized that 74% of my working career has been at the district, and 26% of the time that the district's been in existence, I've worked at the district. I never intended it for it to last this long, but it did. It always provided me with some interesting times. It also provided me with an opportunity to provide for my family and to be home for my family. Because as Ed mentioned, I was on the field service engineer for 11 years. I was gone probably 2 weeks out of every month. So it was pretty tough to see your kids grow up. And so the district gave me that opportunity. I think it's great that you have youngsters like this coming up. They will definitely be the future of not only this country, but hopefully ACWD, and I applaud them for the level of effort that they put out, especially at the 6th and 7th grade levels. So as I step back, I think you've got great people stepping forward, and it's awesome to see that they put that kind of effort out and they've got their parental support. I appreciate Director Kohler taking time out to attend tonight. I had asked specifically that he be here because he and Director Gunther and I did spend a lot of time in committee meetings, and there were some pretty interesting topics, and we seem to have survived all of them, and I'm glad for that. So I guess it's just thank you. As I move away, I know Ed says it's bittersweet, but there's always people to fill or replace, and I'm sure there's somebody else that will come along and do similar to what I've done, or probably even exceed what I've done. So, you know, I think as Mike Rossman put it earlier, I was doing my job. Whatever I was asked, and sometimes I had to question, why me? You know, some of the projects that were put on my plate, I'm like, I don't have this expertise at all. And I think the first time that became relevant to me was the lobby renovation. I knew nothing about architecture, I knew nothing about buildings per se, and yet it worked out. So I don't know if it's by luck or if, you know, the gods were just looking down on me, but...
Director Lampert was looking down on you.
Okay, Director Lampert, okay, I will take that. I will take that. He was an interesting director because whenever I did make presentations, he would hold my feet to the fire during the board meeting, and then at the end say, thank you for a good presentation. So I was just like, wow, I didn't know how to take that, but I always appreciate his support. So thank all of you for providing a place for me to earn a living for my family. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll pay for most of the board. You can't run away yet. I know it's easy, but...
See, now you just have to be
We want
embarrassed.
to torture you.
And we still have to give you a resolution for 27 years of service.
Yeah. So let's talk about someone looking down on you. I actually disagree with that. I think you just rise up to the challenge because of who you are. You have the ability to do something new, something that's uncomfortable, but still do a wonderful job. So I will take a slightly different take, and I'll give credit to Director Lampert just a little bit, but I think most of it is you. You have the ability to do that. And we really appreciate that. Is that ability that helped this district grow. And actually, you know, for a lot of retirement, I get to think of what project people are working on. So I was actually sitting here going, which project did Great not touch? It's a slightly different point of view. You seem to be everywhere.
I did have my hands in a lot of those things.
Oh, yeah. You know, we never directly sit on a committee for that long. I tend to bounce in and out of the engineering committee. But what I do remember is that because you're an engineer, you not only tell us what you are doing, you're also not shy in providing the fact to us about why certain things not possible. It is very easy for us to sit up here and say, we want solar panels. And yeah, we want wind power too. I'm Patterson. Right. You have the ability to actually quietly, honestly, and tell us the pros and cons of each project and why it's not feasible at this point in time. And that's greatly appreciated. And it actually takes a lot of guts to do that. We tend not to be very easy people to manage. And I think that's why you saw that from Director Lampert. We ask a lot of questions, and we really appreciate your honest answers and all your efforts. So I think the credit goes to you and your contribution that make us and our project so wonderful and help us grow. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Director Kohler was right. I mean, from the engineering committee meetings, I enjoyed them. Now, I have one concern is that with your retirement, perhaps my windmill may be walking out the door with you, but I'll hold out hope. Newark, it would have been great. But no, I really appreciate everything you did, and it was always fun. I'm an engineer by degree and not electrical. That's magic. But I was more
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, all magic. But I was mechanical mostly, and so I always enjoyed that. I would like the concept of how things worked and your presentations and how we go over things. The desal plant. The little parts of the desal plant, the energy recoveries, that there was a turbine here. This is what this one did. I really like that stuff, and I always liked working with you. You come in the meeting, it's going to be fun. So good luck. I hate to see you retire. However, I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
And really happy for you, and enjoy it. You deserve it. and thank you for all you've done for us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of time to work together, but I've gotten a chance to sit on the engineering committee meeting now, and I mean, in 27 years, it does seem like you had your hand in every little project. So I thank you for your service, and you've left big shoes to fill here at the district.
Greg, I'd like to note 3 things. One, you were a really good teacher to me, and I was a willing student every meeting I was in that you were present. Along with Director Kohler, we went on quite a number of field trips too, and so I will always remember those. In particular, I'd like to call out 2 things. One, when we had the vandalism on Alameda Creek with our rubber dam, I went down there with Director Kohler quite a number of times, and to see all of your effort from early morning, to late in the evening, and to explain to us, precisely what was going on, and to make sure that we were getting everything that we could out of the contractors that were working on that. That was really important. And lastly, I want to recognize all your efforts on AP Tank, because that was my father's first design effort here at the Water District in 1963. And to have the old tank go down and the new seismically improved tank go up under your supervision, that was a really fine effort. And you've got one shining object up there on the Union City Hills that you can always look at and think proudly about your own efforts in what you accomplished there. So I wish you good luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have the resolution here, but your field service, the practical applications were, I think, carried the day for this district for so many years. Let me present this to you. Photographs were taken. And when the board members, they used to be part of this photo. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay. Well, let me, first of all, have a motion, and then we'll have an opportunity for Greg to be able to recognize anyone he might wish to. So do you have a
I'll
motion
move
for
the motion.
resolution?
Resolution.
Yeah. And the second?
Second by Director Huang.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Sethy?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Gunther?
Aye.
Huang? Aye. And Weed?
Aye. Greg, your final opportunity to recognize anyone you might wish.
Educating our next round of STEM students for the continuing engineering. My younger son who want to follow in my footsteps as an engineer, but my older son, as outside sales, is selling engineering type products to people. So we kept it all pretty close.
That's great.
I'm glad that they were all able to take time out to do this. And thank you, Director Kohler, for being here. I thank all of you for the kind words and the effort you put forward to help me do what I do. And I've had Steve as my supervisor, manager, boss for a while, and Chris Delp was my most recent supervisor, And I see some of my other friends that I've worked with here at the district for quite a number of years, and I appreciate them taking the time out to come down and be with me for the last sign-off in the district. So, thank you. And Mr. Miyake, you kept me out of trouble. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 5.9 is an authorization to provide a rebate for multifamily residential toilet retrofit project.
Take a break.
This item will be presented by the Manager of Water Resources, Stephen In.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Creekside Village Apartments was built in 1986, and the majority of the currently installed toilets are 3.5 gallons per flush. Up on the screen, there's a diagram just to show you the location of the apartments between Alameda Creek and Paseo Padre. Creekside is planning a large-scale toilet retrofit project to replace 742 toilets with ultra-high efficiency toilets, which have a flush volume of 1.0 gallons per flush. Staff proposes to offer a total rebate of up to $47,810 to Creekside based on $70 per toilet for 683 non-high efficiency toilets proposed to be replaced. 59 of the existing high efficiency toilets will also be replaced with the ultra-high efficiency toilets, but will not be eligible for a rebate. There are sufficient funds in the budget to cover this expense. In addition, Union Sanitary District cost share funding and state grant funds are available to offset a portion of the rebate. This item was reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on February 23rd and April 25th, 2017. The recommendation is by motion, authorize the General Manager to approve a rebate of $70 per toilet for a total amount not to exceed $47,810 for the Creekside Village Apartments toilet retrofit project.
Thank you. Do we have any,
No question?
we have a motion to please put on the
I'll
table?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second. This was reviewed by the Water Resources Committee, and I just wanted to express that I believe that this is what I said in the committee meeting, that I believe that this is the first of many efforts like this to come in the future, and I'm hoping that we can reserve the funds in our budget for more water conservation efforts like this with large commercial interests in the community.
I'll be supporting the item tonight, but a little history. The district, along with many of the major water agencies in the state, did not support water closet or toilet replacement programs because they were not cost effective based on the use of water. There is a potential for the maintenance of having replacements, which is really where your major cost savings. But when we ran the study at a much lower cost of water, over 10 years ago in Union City, it was determined that 11 flushes per day, every day, would be the break-even point where it made it cost-effective to replace a water closet based on the amount of water saved and the value of that water. But it's more symbolic, and the real savings are in the maintenance. So I note here we did not give a rebate for the replacement of the existing units, which have been there for a certain period of time. And ironically, I would argue that they're almost equal in savings because you're getting new maintenance, new rings, and double checking all the washers. So we have the item on the table, and see if we can go for absent other comments, go for a roll call. Yes, please.
We have a motion and a second.
Director Sethy?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Gunther?
Aye.
Huang?
Aye.
And Weed?
Aye. Item 5.10, which is the last of the action calendar, is an authorization authorization of amendment to agreement for engineering services for Rubber Dam Number 3 Fishway project.
And this item will be presented by Jason Ching, Project Engineering Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Construction of the Lower Alameda Creek Fish Passage Improvement Project is anticipated to begin in May of 2018. The first project to be completed will be the construction of the Rubber Dam Number 3 Fishway, Fish Ladder, and related improvement projects. The project will include replacement of the Rubber Dam Number 3 bladder, improvements to dam control equipment, as well as dam foundation and anchorage modifications. As long lead items, the rubber dam bladder and design requirements related to the replacement dam will be furnished under a separate contract with the rubber dam system supplier. Final design of the dam foundation modifications must be coordinated with the design of the replacement dam system and its anchorage. Engineering services are required to integrate the dam bladder design into the final foundation design, assist with final permitting, and provide engineering services during construction. There is adequate funding in the capital improvement project budget for this expenditure. Staff's recommendation for this item is as follows. By motion, authorize the general manager to execute a fifth amendment to the professional services agreement with GHD Consulting Engineers Incorporated for additional engineering services in an amount not to exceed $319,502 for the Rubber Dam Number 3 Fishway project, job 21083.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question or comment from members of the board?
Actually, none.
No, none for me.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
I will make one comment, two comments actually. First is, one of the design challenges we have at that site is the stormwater outfalls, one of which is actually submerged when the dam is inflated and the water backs up to the top. And that is not a good design scenario. And we have other storm drains in the area which also put water directly into the pond behind the dam. Since the screens for our intake to our water system in the Quarry Lakes is out of that same pond, I think we have something that hopefully can be addressed. It's not within the scope of this project, but it's certainly related as we do the work up there. Next, I have not been supportive of the fish ladder programs in our district because I believe we should be working to take our water supply system out of the creek using the Niles Canyon aqueduct, and that and there are other issues on both sides which I recognize, so I'll be abstaining on this item. Roll call, please.
Director Sethy?
Aye.
Akbari?
Aye.
Gunther?
Aye.
Huang?
Aye.
And Weed?
Abstain.
I would just like to note on item 5.10, I am supportive of President Weed on restoration of the Niles Canyon Aqueduct.
Thank you. Under reports from the board, we have board committee reports under 6.1. Is there anyone who wishes to have a comment or question related to item 6.1.1 through 6.1.5? There being none, I have a request from a member of the public to address item 6.2.5. So let's take item under the operational reports. Does staff have a presentation on that? Just a short note. All right, please.
Just a quick note on the quarterly projects review by Mr. Ching.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Yes, I'd like to provide an update on the water treatment plant number 2 PLC replacement project. As you're aware, this is a very important district project with some significant project challenges. So I'm pleased to report that phase 2 of the water treatment plant number 2 PLC replacement project was successfully completed in April of this year. In terms of construction, we had one contract change order that totaled approximately $1,350, which represents about 0.2% of the total contract amount. The staff is moving on to phase 3 of the project, which is the final phase of the project. Work has already commenced. Over the next few months, the board should expect to see a couple of items to take action on, including the PLC fabrication services as well as construction services related to phase 3.
Thank you.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Since I come out of the electronics industry, may I know who the equipment provider is for the PLCs?
It's Schneider Electric. That's our PLC.
Good for us. All right, good
so
selection.
We standardize that across the district, so that will be used for all of our facilities.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So that completes item 6.2.1 through 6.2.4. Item 6.2.5 is unfunded liabilities status report. I've asked that be pulled up on the screen, and is there a question or comment from the public? You would like us to look at and discuss it? I have a nod in the affirmative. So if staff would address the chart.
Sure, Jonathan Wunderlich, Manager of Finance, if you can step us through what we see in the report.
Sure. What we're seeing right now on this first graph is the status of our pension funding within CalPERS. As of the latest valuation, at the end of the fiscal year ending in 2015, our pension obligation was funded at 68.5%. CalPERS requires that we fund our normal cost, or the cost of the benefits accrued each year, as well as the additional supplemental amount we have to pay to get fully funded over the next 30 years. This board has taken action to responsibly accelerate that funding, and as we talked about in our budget workshop last night, with the funding that's been authorized by the board, we will be fully funded. Our current estimate is in 20 years. So it will take quite a bit of time to see those bars creep up, but over the next 20 years we should see that gradually creep up from the current 68.5% up to being fully funded.
If I may, as chair of the Finance Committee, let me add to what you're saying, John. For public notice here. One, most agencies, government agencies in the area, state of California, have a rolling 30-year fund, and they're essentially paying on interest without paying down the principal of what they owe into the fund. This board has taken, I think, a pretty strong stance and put forward an initiative to pay down our long-term liabilities, our pension liabilities, over a 20-year period, and have a firm deadline instead of a rolling deadline. And I think that's a very significant differentiation between our agency and other government agencies in the area.
And Director Sethy, and perhaps you're going to get to this, but one other key difference between us and other agencies is we have lowered our discount rate compared to what they use, meaning we have lowered the assumptions of how much investment earnings CalPERS will have each year to get to that funding status to something that is, I think, much more realistic than what most agencies are doing. And in fact, CalPERS itself will be declining their discount rates in the coming years, and will probably eventually get to where we're at the 6.5%.
Right, and as President Whedon and I have noted in our finance meetings, we really would like to get that down to 6%, but what that does inadvertently is it raises the pension obligations that we have for the district, which necessitates in turn that we are making greater contributions. but we're trying to be as realistic as possible. And as both of us have noted, in the corporate world, here in Silicon Valley, rest of the nation, 4.4% is the average for most pension funds in consideration of their what they think their future earnings might be. So I'm proud that as a district, this board has been willing to take some assertive action here and operate with a closed end in sight as far as fulfilling our pension obligations.
Thank you. Do we have other comments from members of the board? I'll make several. Yes, the legacy costs include two components, the retirement, the PERS, and then the OPEB, which is the medical and other retirement benefits. The chart we have before us, as I read the footnotes, only reflects a 7.25 discount rate, not the 6.5 discount rate.
I did note that that's what is in the chart. The estimates that were presented to the board during the rates process and in the budget are based on the 6.5%. That was my understanding.
In our last annual report, it was noted by reducing the discount rate from 7.5% to 6.5%, the unfunded net present value of the PERS liability increased from $64 million to $94 million. When we talked about hopefully we can start using a criteria of 2038, which would be 20 years from now when we look at our new funded ratios. The 4.4% identified for the private sector is established by the Internal Revenue Service as the maximum amount that the private industry can use in their calculations, is my understanding. Moody's has suggested a 20-year payoff, which we have, but a 6% discount rate as part of their stress test. But when we look at the amount of money that we have in unfunded liabilities approaching $100 million, that's about 4 times our annual payroll. So it's going to be a challenge to build up, and hopefully we'll be able to get full funding on there. The OPEB, which is the second part of this slide, is that available to us?
Yes, that's been scrolled down to.
There again at 7.25%, we're at almost 30% funding, but we have not run the calculations for the new 6.5% discount rate, which would drop us on our funded ratios.
But we still are at the 6.5% on the 20-year
same
schedule.
Criteria going forward. Right. So we're working on it. Thank you. Is there any other?
Any comments? I would like to make 2 additional comments. One, and this is to help the board understand where I'm coming from on the Finance Committee. If you look at our pension obligations at a discount rate of 7.5% versus 6.5%, we have the same net obligation if we look at a 15-year payoff period. And in the 15-year payoff period, it's just like a home mortgage. That's a 15-year mortgage. You are really paying down the principal in an accelerated manner. And so my long-term objective is to get us from 20 years down to 15. And some ways to do that are, for instance, if we have some property sales, we make a one-time payment. Instead of using those funds for operating expenses, we pay down our debt obligation and see if we can curtail that timeline down to 15 years and accelerate the payoff. If we do that, then we're looking at the same total dollar amount, and I think that would be a good objective for the board. Number 2, on the OPEB obligations, as I was noting in the Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, you know, we've really made a lot of headway. If you look at the chart here, we've more than doubled our contributions from around 13.5% up to 29.4%. We have an accelerated payment obligation that the board is committed to, And so over the next 4 years, we should be close to 60, 65, 70%. So I think we're going to be, and that this is 2015 fiscal year. We're already in 2017. So by, let's say, 2020, we should be up near 65, 70% of our OPEB obligations paid down. And I think, again, the board, our ratepayers, everybody that's involved with the district has to take some credit here. We are trying to address this in a very aggressive manner, in such a manner that other districts, other public agencies are not doing in our Northern California sphere.
Well, my thought is that may be a bit optimistic since we're looking at a 20-year period of time, and that requires almost a 50% increase in our annual contributions over what we have currently. So it's going to be a challenge, and we started in the past. We tried to start this program in the past. We ran into the drought where our revenues plummeted, and we had to curtail the efforts.
The recession.
We started initially with a $5 million contribution into the to pay this off when it first became a requirement, and then I found out we were using that $5 million to pay our annual contributions. So it's been a real challenge financially to be able to take this on, and it is important. I'm glad the board has a policy to do it.
Since we have a member of the public here, I just want to reiterate that most of the public agencies in our area, all, I would say, are working on a rolling 30-year timetable. They're not really taking seriously the debt obligations that they have. ACWD has half the budget of the city of Fremont. We have a quarter of the employees of the city of Fremont. We operate extremely efficiently. City of Fremont, however, our obligations are close to $100 million, but City of Fremont is $400 million. And while they're selling off properties, I'm expressing my own personal viewpoint here, I would be paying down that $400 million of debt rather than committing to building Taj Mahal downtown or something like that. So I think that there's a difference in philosophy with this district in terms of how we're trying to deal with our debt obligations, and I hope it stands forward as a standard for the rest of the community.
Well, I know we're looking at other districts. Some, such as the school districts, have CalSTRS, which is covered by the state, but the OPEB is a local responsibility that I believe they're now talking about starting to address. So it's San Francisco uses a 4.4% discount rate in their calculations, but they're not funding it. So we're part of the Bosca group on the water enterprise section, and that liability is approaching $100 million. We have a 4% responsibility for that, and someday we'll get a big bill. Thank you. Is there any other point that anyone wishes to raise on unfunded liability status report? There being none, we can move on then to 6.2.6, the water production report.
Anything to report, Mr. Peterson? Were there any particular questions?
No, I would note that we were running below 30 MGD up until about 3 weeks ago, and now we're seeing a rebound.
Correct.
It spiked up to 39 MGD during the heat wave.
We have the other two, which are 6.2.7, distribution system monthly hardness map, and 6.2.8, which is the monthly demand status report, which we've just commented on. So that being done, let's move then to 6.3, which is the staff presentations, an update on water quality control plan for the San Francisco Bay, Sacramento, San Joaquin, Delta Estuary.
And this item will be first introduced by Stephen In, our Manager of Water Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. For those of us that were at the Aqua Conference this past week, This was a very popular topic, and in fact, the executive director of Aqua stated that this was going to be Aqua's #1 priority for the foreseeable future. And so, with that as a backdrop, the timing for this presentation is perfect. And tonight we have Leonard Ash here, who's our Water Resources Planning Engineer. He'll be giving an overview of all the issues involved with the Bay Delta Plan, what the impacts are to the district, and what our response has been to date. So with that, I'll turn it over to Leonard.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I do want to talk about the update to the Water Quality Control Plan for the San Francisco Bay, Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta Estuary. For brevity, I'll be referring to this as the Bay Delta Plan. The Bay Delta Plan has been adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board. The State Water Board has two primary responsibilities, and that's allocating surface water rights and protecting water quality. So they administer these water rights to maximize beneficial use. And as you're aware, there are regional water control boards, and because of the importance of the Delta, the state board itself has taken control over updating and maintaining the water quality control plan for the Delta. So that's why, given its geographic importance and its importance to the state, that's why the state board itself has taken control over this plan. And it provides the major source of water supply to the state. So just for a refresher, what is the Bay Delta Estuary? It includes the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, which is the area in yellow. Also includes the Sassoon Marsh, which is in the center, outlined by that red border, and the San Francisco Bay. California's two major rivers, the Sacramento River and San Joaquin River, converge in the Delta and meet incoming seawater from the Pacific Ocean in the San Francisco Bay. I wanted to provide a little historical context for the state's efforts in managing water quality in the Delta. It first started back in the 1950s when the state issued Delta water rights decisions. At the end of the 50s, there was the Delta Protection Act that passed to emphasize water quality to support agricultural uses in the Delta. In the 1960s, there was increased concern for fish and wildlife, including protecting fish flows, and basic water quality requirements for the Delta were first established in 1967. In 1969, California adopted the Porter Cologne Water Quality Control Act, the Porter Cologne Act, and that became, when that became law, it gave the state authority over beneficial uses of water in the Bay Delta. In the 1970s, water quality requirements hit Delta export projects. And in 1978, the first water quality control plan for the Delta was approved. Its provisions were implemented over time. In 1995, the state had its first major revision to the Bay Delta Plan. And it took nearly 10 years for those objectives to be codified through various water right decisions and other implementing actions from the State Board. 5 years later, in 2000, all of those water right decisions perfected the planning efforts that were first identified in 1995. In 2006, the existing Bay Delta Plan was adopted, and that's currently the plan that's on the books right now. It identified emerging issues for future consideration, and the board is now acting to study those and implement those with the current updates that are proposed. In 2009, they began their periodic review of the Bay Delta Plan. So basically requiring the State Board to be in a periodic process of reviewing this plan and updating it. So where are we now? Well, right now, the Water Board has identified 4 phases of implementing updates to the Water Quality Control Plan. The first phase and the second phase are active right now, and the third and fourth phases are coming up later. The very first phase focuses on the San Joaquin River flows and South Delta water quality objectives. And for some perspective, this is the San Joaquin Basin. So you have the San Joaquin River, Stanislaus River, the Tuolumne River, and the Merced River. What Phase 1 objectives are focusing on are February through June flow objectives in the San Joaquin River and its salmon-bearing tributaries, the Stanislaus, Tuolumne, and Merced. They want to support and maintain the natural production of viable native fish. And they want to revise the numerical Southern Delta salinity objectives and associated programs to implement that to protect agricultural beneficial uses in the Southern Delta. Now, the nexus for ACWD, of course, is how this Phase 1 will affect our San Francisco supply. Because San Francisco uses water from the Tuolumne River, which is a South Delta tributary. The environmental document that the State Board is using to implement Phase 1 has been referred to as the SED, Substitute Environmental Document. So the SED is an environmental review of Phase 1 of the Bay Delta Plan. The SED was first issued as an NOP in 2009. In 2011, they revised the NOP based on the comments they received. And in 2011, they also issued a technical report. In 2012, they released a draft technical appendices. And by the end of 2012, they finally released a draft Phase 1 plan, proposed changes to the Bay Delta Plan, and draft SED for public comment. This was back in 2012. By 2016, or by March of 2013, they received comments, and it wasn't until September of 2016 that they released a revised draft SED. And that's the most recent activity that we have. The comments for that were due in March, which reflects an extended deadline based on the interest and volume of public comments that they received. They expect by October to release the final SED and proposed changes to the Bay Delta Plan for public review, and optimistically hoping to consider adopting changes by the end of this year. Phase 2 deals with the Sacramento River, its tributaries, as well as overall Delta, out-of-Delta flow water quality requirements. The nexus for ACWD in Phase 2 relates to our contract with the State Water Project, and it also affects the other large federal project, the Central Valley Project, and East Bay Mud, for example, which receives most of its water from the Mokelumne. That NOP for Phase 2 was issued in January 2012, and in 2016, they released a working draft of the scientific basis of their report. They had a public workshop on the working draft of the scientific basis in December, and likely at this point, the draft supplemental environmental document for Phase 2 is likely under peer review right now, and we expect the draft to be released possibly later this year. So that summarizes the two active phases that are underway, and since both of those focus on flow requirements, I'd like to take a minute to talk about how the state sees benefits from having these flow objectives. The state has identified species benefits from increased flow objectives in two main areas. That's temperature and floodplain benefits. Increased flows will provide cooler water for fish for longer periods of time throughout the year and across longer reaches of river. Increased flows will provide improved conditions for natural floodplains, which in turn provide food for the fish species, habitat to avoid predators, faster growth for the fish, which increases their survival and their spawning habitat. Now, the graph that you see here is an example of how increased flows will improve the temperature conditions for fish. Given the criteria the state set for 60.8 degrees water temperature or cooler as an ideal condition for fish in the Tuolumne River, in orange you see the current baseline conditions, where the number of days the water is warmer than 60.8 degrees is substantial compared to the blue bars, which represents 40% unimpaired flow. And there with the blue you see that most days the water temperature is within the criteria that they've identified. Now, the goal here is that the state wants to recreate conditions to which native fish species are adapted, which reflects the frequency, duration, timing, and the rate of change of the flows. Last month, Thomas presented a hydrograph of the Yuba River, and you saw the unimpaired flows and then what the state sees as the 40% unimpaired flows. And with that, if you recall, you noticed that the state's goals were trying to mimic the hydrograph. There'll be reduced flows, but trying to mimic the duration, frequency, and timing of those releases. So why focus on flow? State studies have shown that to recreate those conditions to which they have adapted is best for their survival. For the lower San Joaquin River, the State Board's 2012 flow report concluded that 60% of flow should be left in the lower San Joaquin River to benefit fish. But currently, agriculture and potable use for that water takes more than 80% of the flow in the lower San Joaquin. So staff is trying to balance the goals of the various beneficial uses of that water, knowing that there's not enough for everybody. That's why staff is recommending a range between 30 and 50% of unimpaired flow, and they're starting the negotiations at 40%. Now, this reflects a difference in approach. The state is using unimpaired flow as a way of mimicking what is beneficial for species. However, there are other schools of thought, such as managed flows, ways of releasing less water for environmental benefits, but achieving the same results. So the discussions that are going on right now, some of that tension reflects those various viewpoints on how to get the same benefit for the environment, but having the preponderance of the balance be preserved for other beneficial uses aside from environmental. The State Board, I should point out, that the State Board has a long history of encouraging settlements. And that's something that we continue to hear in the ongoing discussions over how the state is going to respond to Phase 1 comments. There are negotiations underway. Former Secretary Bruce Babbitt is managing those discussions among various stakeholder groups. So the state coming in at 40% unimpaired flow, you have other users such as water utilities that would like to see that number decreased. Just for some context for the Tuolumne River, again where San Francisco gets a majority of its supplies, I wanted to show what unimpaired flow looks like at the Don Pedro Reservoir in purple. Compare that to the flow measured down near the confluence at Modesto, and that's shown in blue. So that you can see here the difference between, on that upper graph, the purple and blue bars just show you that a lot of the water that's flowing in the upper part of that watershed is not reaching the confluence with the San Joaquin River. In the lower graph, you'll see in orange showing the historical percent of unimpaired flow in the Tuolumne River at Modesto. So this is what's making it down to that recording station. And to achieve that state-identified 40% unimpaired flow, which is that dashed red line, you see that for several years, those upward red arrows are indicating that more releases will need to flow down to that confluence. And you'll notice that all those years where greater flows are required include all the dry and critical dry years are included in those years. So really, when the state is facing critical shortfalls for water supply are also years that the state has identified that more flow releases for environmental benefits are also required, which creates that tension. This is what a hydrograph could look like on a yearly schedule for the Tuolumne. And the solid blue line shows your baseline average wet year as required under FERC licensing for Don Pedro. The solid red shows your baseline critical year, again under FERC licensing restrictions. And the dashed green line shows 40% unimpaired flow required under the updated plan for wet years. And the dashed blue is 40% unimpaired under the updated plan for average critical years. So your February through June flows under the updated Bay Delta plan would require more flows in a critical year that's currently required under your average wet year. This has significant effects to ACWD. As Thomas mentioned last month, we're highly dependent on San Francisco supplies, especially in those drought years. And the updated SED shows that that San Francisco will have decreased reserves during those same dry years. So overall, what the district expects to see from Phase 1 and what we expect from Phase 2 will be decreased availability of water supply as more water is committed to the environment. Now there are a little bit of silver linings now and then. Because there'll be more flow into the South Delta, that we expect that to improve water quality down there, which maybe from time to time would allow us to get higher quality water and maybe more of it. But on balance, more water is going to the environment than we will see from this proposed update. And that reduced water supply is most pronounced in frequency and magnitude in dry and critically dry years, and a greater dependence for us on groundwater banking and local supplies. Now, the district has provided comments on the SED. We wrote a letter to the State Water Resources Control Board on March 8th, and we also wrote a letter to Aqua on April 5th that referenced our March 8th letter, and the March 8th letter was used to bolster BOSCA's 51-page response letter to the SED, and our April 5th letter was used to show support to Aqua for their policy statement on the Bay Delta flow requirements. And this week, we saw some headlines. The environmental issues are continuing to get attention, just as infrastructure issues are as well. But with the news that, especially with the drought, it has had negative impacts on fish species and the environment as a whole. So it just shows you that there are lots of competing interests, both for the state to try to balance all the different uses, and also for public opinion. So what is ACWD doing? We are continuing to monitor the situation. We're reviewing and commenting when we can. We have close working relationships with our partners, for example, BOSCA and Aqua, and we update our water supply reliability. As Thomas mentioned, we're continuing to monitor all the options that are available to us in that longer term as the SED and other phases are expecting to see a decrease in supply availability. And we're planning accordingly, which you saw in the presentation last month. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you. If there are no comments from the public or input from staff, I may turn it to the board.
Actually, no questions. Been following this issue. Staff is doing everything we need to do. Try very hard to get our voice heard, plan accordingly, and try to minimize the impact to us. So that's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. You're correct. This is very pretty much a main topic at the conference. I did actually sit in on a couple of things that targeted it, so I'll talk about those a little bit later. But yeah, I think we're doing the right thing. We're commenting. Some of the comments at the conference were very interesting. I think, though, we've, as a Delta user, have lived under conditions like this already, and I find it a little bit intriguing that maybe some of the other players that haven't had to live under those conditions are now may have to. Of course, the problem with that is we use that supply as well. But actually there was a comment made by one of the agencies that was going to be hit, directed basically at Met, or sending water south. And they were angry that this was, they didn't want to see this water going south. And I just almost had to chuckle, because it was like, well, you know, for years we've had to deal with this. And now all of a sudden it's an issue for you. And I agree, we need to support it. We're all in this together. And I've been saying that for a long time, though. We're all in this together. So there were also several other things I'll talk about later, too, that in regards to this, as to why maybe it's not such a great idea.
Leonard, I would just like to supplement what you're saying here by putting things in a little bit of perspective. From what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, from the time that Hetch-Hetchy was built and many of the dams affecting the Tuolumne, Stanislaus, Merced River, McCollum, we've really been dealing with about 10% unimpaired water flow to the Delta. And so the proposal, or the first estimate to bring that up to 60% was the ideal situation if we could achieve it, where there would be balance between urban, ag, and environmental interests. They've come up with a proposal, like you said, as a starting negotiating point of 40%. We may settle somewhere in between the 10 and 40%. But historically, and I'm just speaking as a urban water district, we've had the luxury of taking advantage of almost all the water that we wanted from Hetch-Hetchy, from other reservoirs among the four major tributaries of the San Joaquin River for, you know, close to a century right now. And so I'm a big believer, as Governor Brown says, in trying to achieve a balance between urban, ag, and the environmental interests. I'm seriously concerned about, you know, salmon restoration and other fishery habitat restoration. So this is a very tough issue for us to deal with. And I would also like to highlight one other area of your presentation, which is that with the unimpaired flows, even at 40%, during critical dry years, if we, let's say that was adopted, the 40% standard, or 30%, during critical dry years, that's when we would be most affected, critically affected in this district. We can survive the other years with an increase in the unimpaired flows. But during those critical dry years, which is a regularity in our area, we will have to, as we have been doing as a district, look at other sources of water supply, internal and external, to our district. And so I applaud the staff for looking at all the options we have available right now, because we don't know what finally will land on our heads here. But if I look at myself in a broader sense as a Californian, rather than just a resident of the Tri-City area, I'm a believer that we're heading in the right direction, even if it may challenge us, you know, over the short and long term here.
Thank you. For San Francisco, this came out of the blue. They were concerned about the draining of Hetch-Hetchy and issues related to that, and suddenly realized when this dropped on the table that it's a far greater threat to their district in particular and to their customers because of their junior rights. They're behind Turlock and Modesto irrigation districts, and therefore this is their first priority. At a Bosca meeting of 2 months ago, we had about 10 representatives from the Sierra Club arguing that 60% unimpaired flow should be the criteria because the biologists had said that that was what they felt to be the minimum requirement to support the fish and to assure the protection of the fish. Certainly above the 40%. At the Aqua Conference in a session, the Chief Counsel for the State Water Board Resources Board said matter-of-factly, this is going to pass. There will be an unimpaired flow requirement. After that meeting, Mike Hardesty, who received the award from Aqua for that, he was about to retire, he's in the Dixon area, came out and made an insightful comment. He said, you know, this is DWR's problem. We have a contract with DWR to supply us so much water, they have to find it. And if you think about it, this will put such a strain on the system as a whole. The DWR is going to have to go back and revisit many of the issues that they have in their design. Del Val comes to mind, a reservoir that has capability of 50,000 acre-feet of additional water management storage, built, never used. The water we get is our own water rights. So I foresee that Del Val will be, the East Bay Regional Park District will be relocated. The cost will be easily in excess of $100 million, and rather than that being paid for with bond money, it'll be charged to the beneficiaries, including Alameda County Water District. So our ratepayers, in lieu of bond money, will be paying for that. It's unfortunate we did not proceed and find a less expensive way than the $1 million application for the bond money to accomplish it. But it also triggers issues even in this case, because once they, as noted, once you start utilizing Del Val and you have to change the flood control curves, the national fishery people come in and you don't know how much water they're going to demand this time. So it's a real challenge to us. The concept of managed flows is an interesting one, but does not appear to have currency among the state staff, and the board appears to be leaning on their staff historically, not open to more industry-wide discussions. So, thank you. Those are my thoughts. Any other?
Good thoughts.
Good. Then, if that completes the general manager reports.
Thank you,
Thank
Leonard.
you very much.
Actually, we do have one general manager report.
Okay.
And that is by Mr. Wunderlich, a brief comment.
Right, we did mention this with the Finance Committee in April, but wanted to let the whole board know that the district did receive the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. And what this is it's a transparency award. It means we go above and beyond what's required to provide more information in our annual financial report.
Thank you. Any questions?
Good job.
Quick comment.
Please.
It's the 18th year that we've achieved this recognition. And as I pointed out at the committee meeting, I have asked that we prepare some information for the community to put this in perspective, because there aren't many agencies in California that have such consistency and transparency on their financials. We're oftentimes, we've got critics of the board and our finances that come forward to public meetings, and I think that we need to demonstrate and showcase how rare it is for any government agency to achieve such consistency in this Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And I've asked that we perhaps put an article into the Tri-City Voice as well, where we can put into perspective what this really means for the community. Because it's one thing just to say, rah, rah, we've got this award, but I think the community really needs to understand what is this award in perspective to the whole, and so that they can better appreciate how well we manage the finances of this district.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Then item 7 on our agenda is director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item request. 7.1 is mine, which is a director. I went to a California Water Policy Conference 26 in San Diego. ACWD is a sponsor of this organization and therefore of the conference. We had 2 attendance opportunities that were paid for as part of our sponsor, or provided to us as named sponsors. Bob Shaver and I attended. It was an excellent opportunity to meet some leaders of the water agencies, particularly Zone 7 and Santa Clara Valley Water District, as well as San Francisco, and I think useful discussions. Item 7.2 is a report on the Water Education Foundation workshop in Sacramento on April 12th. I attended that. It was a one-afternoon meeting. Again, this was the PPIC was well represented, but more importantly, DWR. And this was a session that involved a number of the DWR individuals, including Gary Lipner, who I was able to discuss and chastise about their lack of support initially for the Del Valle proposal. Next was Director Sethy's report on the California Water Commission of April 20th.
On April 20th, I made a presentation on behalf of the board. Leonard was also with me at that meeting at the California Water Commission, and I represented the board on our decision to not move forward in spending $1 million on our application for Proposition 1 grant funding for the Lake Del Valle proposed project. So I was representing the board, and we had a review of my prepared remarks by our general manager and staff before I made the presentation. But just to piggyback on President Weed's remarks in reference to Lake Del Valle, I've been wrestling with this for quite a while, and I feel, as a progressive, as somebody who's looking out to the future of our district, and looking out decades from now. And I think Director Weed has been doing the same thing. It was his original idea that I think personally it would have been well worth the effort to put in the money, spend the $1 million. We have $130 million plus in the bank right now, just to push the organization. I've been used to doing this in high technology. I like to push people to perform at peak performance. I think we would have learned a lot of lessons here from this. And so, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't move forward on it, but I respect the board's decision. I will tell you that we had direct feedback from the chairman of the commission after the meeting, who spoke with both Leonard and I. It was more happenstance than anything else. But the commission members were clearly dejected as I was giving my presentation. There was a pall that went over the meeting because I was the first to present on behalf of any district in the state of California to withdraw from the process. And this was only 1 month after they had opened up the door for the Prop 1 funding. So the rest of the audience members, there was a little hush that went around the room that ACWD is a very significant player in the urban water, among the urban water agencies, and the fact that we had withdrawn, it was a little bit of a shock, and the chairman of the commission expressed that to us after the meeting, that there was certainly a level of disappointment. So hopefully we will be able to look at some other grant opportunities, but I am a real believer in the Lake Del Valle expansion opportunities if we can figure out how best to do it moving forward. So those are my comments on the California Water Commission.
The operative word is reoperation, which allows 100, not expansion.
Yeah,
Las Vaqueros is building new. This is one that was built, designed, and never utilized.
And over the last 18 months, the commission members have been expressing that their number one opportunity that they were looking at was reoperation of reservoirs throughout the state. So,
and this allowed conjunctive use with our groundwater basins.
Exactly. So we, you know, if we're trying to look for added reservoir capacity in the area, and we've had people come forward to the board, people have campaigned on it, we need greater reservoir capabilities, capacity. This is a, you know, a number one opportunity, and so hopefully, you know, we can look at some other angles on this opportunity moving forward.
Ironically, the East Bay Regional Park District's 50-year lease expires in 2024. Hopefully it's not extended, but I think in the process of that negotiation it will be very expensive to relocate them.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a long and drawn-out discussion on this topic at the past board meetings. There are other reasons than the $1 million that the cost of the application, that why we did not choose to pursue this opportunity. I think the facts speak for itself that we had timing issues, and the fact the odds of getting the funding is fairly low. That's why none of our partners on South by Aqueduct actually decide to go with it either. So I think in terms of getting local storage, I still believe in the project. It just, perhaps this is not the vehicle for it. And I think the facts out there speak for itself. The fact that Santa Clara and Zone 7 chose not to pursue this opportunity also.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far into it, but politically, we don't have the ammunition. If East Bay Parks is not on board with this, it's a done deal. It's not going to go. We don't control. We're technical people. We see the value of this, but we don't control what happens, nor do we control the flow. And so we could just propose our idea. I think our concept going before the board with that letter was beautiful. I think it was important for them to understand that an agency like us had to withdraw because of their requirements that they put forward. They pushed us out, and we'll spend the money. The money will be spent. It'll be spent on storage. It's just not going to be spent there. Here is a project that had potential, but their timeline killed us, and it was important for them to hear that. And I applaud your effort on that. And there should have been a pause in that room when they heard that we're pulling out because we just can't meet your requirements and timeline, which were just so onerous. So, but without East Bay Regional Park, we're not going to get it.
To build on your comments, Director Gunther, I am a believer in what I wrote in my final paragraph of that letter, or what I said, that the Commission did not provide the means to submit or have an application process for modest-sized projects. And many people had complained about that over the last year as they were developing the regulations and the application procedures. So they heard it loud and clear. And for all the people that were in the room, and it packs, close to 200 people, people from around the state of California heard what ACWD had to say.
And let me add quickly that DWR strikes me as being the major player here. They own the property, and they did not get on board initially with their leadership. They gave us technical support, but they didn't give us policy support. So that, I think, will change as the SED and the unimpaired flow issues impact the state water system as a whole. My comments earlier, we're going to see it, just that our ratepayers are going to pay for it. Thank you. So, that being the last, we have one more item, which is 7.4, the Aqua Conference, where Directors Akbari, Gunther, Sethy, Weed attended, and we each have an opportunity to make a comment.
I could start, I guess. I went to several sessions. First was the finance program on the pension cost outlook. And we, I think, have made a wise decision to go with 6.5. CalPERS is going to head up in that direction. They kind of indicated that's where they're going. I think it's important, though, that when we do discuss what we've done, that people understand that they're still at the higher level. It's just they're not going to be. So we made a conscious decision to go to that level early, which I think is a very wise move. It was interesting. They had East Bay Mud there and discussing their program. And Hanson Bridget was also there, and terrific lawyers. But there is something out there that we may not like, that we may see. And that's and we've already seen it in the news. It's not been very well broadcast, but it's the ESG, the environmental social goals, climate change, union concepts, being involved in pension funds. And there's a possibility that some of these goals are going to be actually put into the plans, and they're going to be mandated in. As I said earlier, just like about a couple minutes ago, we don't have the political power because people see that, oh, it's great. It's a great idea. My view is CalPERS is there to make money. But the concept is, oh no, they could do that, but they could do it with these goals. What's going to happen? The danger is that these goals could become legislated in. And if they do, it's only going to harm us even more. So we better be ready for that. They're not there yet, but there's certainly a possibility. It was really a very interesting session, and how East Bay Mud has had to deal with that because they're obviously in an area like that. And they had one of their staffers, or one of the board members is very pro to this and doesn't really care about how the operation, well, at least that's my opinion. I get this perception. I don't think she really cares. It's going to do this. It's going to have an impact, a social impact. They're using the taxpayers and ratepayers' money to have a social impact. But like I said, we don't have the political power. So it was a little depressing, but still it's very interesting, and I'm very glad we're doing the 6.5 because I think that's where CalPERS is going. I found the lunch presentation on the Oroville Dam disaster to be absolutely terrific. I kind of expected more on what had occurred. Maybe I missed it, but I expected a little bit more about the phenomenal weather patterns and what happened this spring. Maybe they'll have something in the fall. I don't know. They may have been sidetracked by the flow requirements. But one thing I found very interesting about this whole thing is that we just had the wettest record in California history. Oroville Dam suffered this pretty major issue, but the dam did not fail, and nobody died. And yet, everybody's looking at this and saying how terrible the dam is, how horrible this thing was designed. And yeah, it was designed in the 60s, but it's a testament to the fact it's still up in the wettest year in California's history. The dam is still there, and by the way, the communities below the dam that are all pissed off because they got evacuated, they're still standing too. If the dam wasn't there, I really wonder, would they have not just been evacuated, they probably wouldn't be there. So, kind of looking at it from an outsider's point of view, except that they want to charge us to fix it because, of course, we're a user, and everybody else is like off the hook. Well, those communities benefited too. They're still there, and nobody died. A testament to the evacuation, but the amount of stuff, just phenomenal pictures, how they had to go about this. One of the things that they had was the 49 atmospheric rivers hit California. They hit the West Coast.
Normally just 5 or 6.
Yeah, normally 13 severe and 3 extreme hit California. They had to slow their flows for fear that if they had higher flows, they were going to breach the levees downstream. They did have flooding downstream. One thing that didn't come out of the news media at the time was there was a power tower that was going to collapse. It was in danger of collapsing. It didn't. But they had to cut the lines, because if that power tower had collapsed, the power plant wouldn't have been able to restart, because it would have pulled down more power towers, which would have prevented the power plant from restarting, which would have prevented from more water getting out. They had CAL FIRE involved in their air operations. They had 6 helicopters working, moving the rocks. And these rocks were so big they were sitting on flatbed trailers. And the rock baskets they had, they looked small, but if you looked at the size of them and compared to the helicopter, they were huge. They had 6 helicopters working that. They had 3 working on the power line, and they were using drones. Phenomenal effort. They had pictures of trucks lined up. And that was very enjoyable to have that by the deputy director, who's still getting beat up, and I think unjustly. I really feel that he was unjustly. There were some mistakes made, but this thing withstood the last year on history. There's something to be said about that. I went to it's joining together here. There were 2 sessions. One was the local flexibility and water rate structure. Very interesting. The possibility of amendment allowing the ability to have a lifeline for us way down the road, but it's still there. There's some hope. It originally had stormwater with it, and they pulled it out. I'm glad they did, because one of the things I saw in the last conference that I went to was there were, I think, 3 major items in with the lifeline. It would also allow us to do have more flexibility in how we set rates, tiered rates if we wanted to. We're in a situation, in my opinion, where we could do it because we have multiple sources, multiple supplies. Some agencies aren't, but they would actually allow them to, by this measure, they would allow them to do that. To go back now on the flows, there was a session there, and I didn't expect to get any benefit out of this. I thought I might. It dealt with the winter, with the Chinook salmon, Shasta flows. Actually, Charles Hansen, Dr. Hansen presented at that session, as did the Bureau of Reclamation, acting commissioner, and the general manager of Reclamation District 108. One of the things they brought up was, yes, temperature and water flow matter. But if you run that water down a channel, you've done nothing. You have to fix the habitat. You have to provide a place for the young salmon, the salmonoids, to hide, to avoid the predation. Otherwise, yeah, they're going to live, they'll survive, and they're going to get eaten by the predators. So you have to develop, and they've done this up there. The folks up on Reclamation District 108 have had some terrific projects. There are some in process out there, but they're concerned, and I agree with them, and they're hoping that they could get this in to the decision making on this, to say, okay, pull away from the flow and look at the habitat, look at the food supply. If they can't eat and all they're going to do is you're going to run this water down these channels, you've accomplished nothing. And then I went to the statewide issue panel on the San Joaquin River flow and basically heard them say, we're going to do it. So there are people, I know Ak was looking at it, and one of the things was definitely the concept of putting in flow restrictions in the channels, building back more something that resembles a natural habitat. I think they've got some pretty good support there. There is some truth that a water temperature gets to a certain point, it's going to kill all the fish off, or a large portion of them. But if you have the little ones survive because you float all this, you put all this temperature in there, but all they can do is end up swimming down an open channel, they're not going to make it out. They're going to get eaten. So, pretty good conference overall. Not as depressing as the last few.
Well, I had a chance to go to my first Aqua conference, and I went for one day. I was there for the morning and afternoon speeches, and I also had a chance to go to a groundwater rights presentation. Actually, I left my notes at home on that, but that was quite interesting, and I also got to walk around the exhibition floor. So I learned a lot about our opportunities with solar and renewable energy, and I know that was something that you brought up, Sethy, yesterday, and so I had an opportunity to learn more about those programs. And the week before that, I also had a chance to go with the general manager and President Lee to Los Vaqueros, which was a very, very eye-opening trip for me, and getting to learn about that project as well. So,
I put my focus at Aqua on the finance and finance meetings, rate structures, and affordability. Director Gunther was referring to State Constitutional Amendment 4, which would provide a lifeline rate, and so we went through the entire discussion on that. at each Aqua conference, I always make it an aim to find sessions I can go to that will save us money or make us money. So I just want to highlight two of those. One was the finance program on trends in municipal finance, and I brought back those materials to the Finance Committee on Tuesday. Currently, our district, most government entities have an investment policy and a reserve policy, but as of January 1 of this year, we have state legislation that passed, was signed by the governor, that requires us to have a debt policy as well. Okay. So I went through a kind of a training on all the requirements of having a debt policy and all of the compliance requirements for current debt outstanding as well as future obligations in case we go for a bond or something like that. So I was happy to hear from John at our Finance Committee and from our finance team that we're right on top of the ball. We have a debt policy and compliance policy under development right now, and it will be brought to the board sometime shortly for review. And we surprisingly, you hear of Frank Dodd requirements, and you think of the corporate world, but the Frank Dodd requirements are also affecting all the government agencies. Okay. And some very tough requirements that we have to meet and changes in policies. So that was a real, quite a learning experience, and I was happy to bring that back to the Finance Committee. And then I wanted to highlight the technical conference I went to on the application of solar on water surfaces. And as I mentioned last night at our board budget workshop, I've been following this for about 10 years now, and following how the technology's been developing. And it's really gotten to the stage of viability and with good financial ROI opportunities. I'm not going to go through the details here, but I gave the materials to Mr. Stevenson before the meeting, and I spoke with the lady who was the international sales director for this large French company, and I was surprised to learn that they have already reviewed all of our quarry opportunities for us without us even knowing. They're up in Petaluma, and we have some really interesting opportunities to put solar on water without going through CEQA, just getting a regular building permit. That's what they said. Not sure if that's true, but that's what they said.
My guess would be you'll run into issues with species protection because a lot of our open waters, our quarries, are probably considered part of the Pacific Flyway stops for the birds, for example. So if you cover the waterway, and it definitely would be shading, temperature issues, I'll be a little bit surprised if you don't need to do a CEQA.
Yeah. Turns out these solar installations on water actually attract the birds.
See the panel?
But they have unique ways of washing the solar panels.
Perhaps Greg Watson will hang around a little longer.
Great, another project.
Well, I thought it might be worth experimenting with here, and we certainly do have a lot of water availability. So I was thinking of Pit 1 and 2 down by Peralta and Paseo Padre, Shin Pond and Bunting Pond, without going into our regional parks shared district at Quarry Lakes. So that was valuable because even if we rented the water surface, we provide rental income back to the district to offset our power requirements, and our power requirements forecasted out to 2030 right now are going up steadily. And so anything we can do to offset that with solar, I'm a real believer in. So I'm hoping that the engineering committee will take a serious look at this and perhaps we can maybe do one pilot or something in the near future. I have two other quick reports. After the budget workshop last night, I was at Fremont City Hall to chair the Southern Alameda County GIS JPA, of which we are part of. We currently have ACWD, USD, City of Fremont, and City of Newark as participants. So the four members represented last night were myself, Mayor Nagy, Vinnie Bacon, and Manny Fernandez from USD. Vinnie was absent, but I'm the current chair, he's the incoming chair. And we had a very good meeting. I wrote up not a very detailed, but a good report summary for Mr. Shaver earlier today. And we had quite a number of accomplishments at that meeting. It has been my desire, this is my 7th year on the committee, or the JPA, to re-engage Union City as a member. During the recession, they had to make so many cutbacks that they withdrew, but with a nominal investment, as I expressed in my report today, there's a tremendous return on investment from participating. And so I was hoping to bring it up again last night, sounding like a broken record, because the staff doesn't want to hear it from me year after year. And so I was thankful that Manny Fernandez, Director Fernandez, actually brought it up first. And he's a former longtime council member. And so he made the point, and so Mayor Nagy and I supported that. And we proposed that we have an interim year meeting, which we've never had before, where we would make a presentation to the staff and council members of Union City. And so City of Fremont staff is going to draft up a letter for review by the 2 general managers and the 2 city managers proposing this. And I'm hopeful, and I'm hoping that maybe through our political connections, we can, Jim, make some efforts to kind of drumbeat a little bit
It would be nice to get them back, yeah.
proposal with Union City and try to get them back on board as a member. As an aside, the City of Fremont Police Department is very much in favor of doing this as well. So that was a good meeting last night. We had a contested meeting at the very beginning, and I will address this to our general counsel here, as to whether we had a legitimate meeting being conducted under the Brown Act. And to make it very short, the gentleman who was representing the Mission Peak Conservancy came to the meeting aggrieved that we did not have proper posting and notification of the SAC-GIS meeting. It had been posted in the Fremont, City of Fremont casing outside of City Hall, but SAC-GIS does not have a website. So there was no posting on a website for the convenience of this gentleman. And the attorney for the City of Fremont, who represents the JPA as a separate entity, we had to take a break to examine exactly what each agency had done in terms of necessary posting and everything. She concluded that we did not have a violation of the Brown Act and therefore could move forward with the meeting. But the lesson learned was that even us as a separate agency, we need to post notices of SAC-GIS meetings in our public casing out front. as to where the meeting is and everything like that?
So, I mean, you're gazing at me. I'm not aware of that requirement, but I defer to council to help us with the rules.
We'll refer that to council, and council can get back to us with it.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. If you got advice from the attorney for the JPA, you went with that at your meeting last night, but I can certainly look into it from ACWD's perspective as a member of the JPA. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Well, she said that it was appropriate that we had posted the notice last Friday at the city, outside City Hall, because that's where the meeting was going to take place. But since we rotate having meetings around the district, she suggested, kind of CYA, that we all post notices of SAC-GIS meetings and where it is to be conducted. That was just advisory. So next year, or the annual meeting will be at USD, and therefore they need to post it out front.
Interesting. Having one thing I forgot about the Aqua Conference, I was cleansed with ethics again, and basically from what I carried away from that is I think you're fine, or the committee's fine, but you know, if this guy, it may not be inappropriate for us to perhaps post something like that on our website if we have an attendance. You know, we're a member of that. I don't know how difficult that would be to just add it to our website, is that this meeting's going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that would be something that the group could, because they don't have their own, you know, everything happens on the web today, nothing happens, nobody goes and reads posted things anymore, right? Except some of us. But that might be appropriate. I think if they posted in the 2 city halls, I mean, they're the 2 cities that are the agents, you know, the members of the group. That
We'll
would
have
be
council
more
be
than
able to get
sufficient.
advice.
Can I suggest have council look into this, and we probably need a policy, because if we start posting meetings for the GIS group, are we posting it for Bosca and
Well, we also have the
everybody
financing
else?
authority.
We put up the Bosca meetings in our...
We do?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just need to think about it, because there are other meetings that we attend.
This is once a year.
There was a secondary issue that was brought up, which was that they just posted the very summary of the meeting that was upcoming instead of the agenda, and the gentleman had a very difficult time tracking down who in City Hall was responsible for the JPA, and had a difficult time getting a hold of the agenda for the meeting. And he spoke on 3 different items last night, so he had a real interest in the meeting, and was not able to obtain the actual formal agenda until 24 hours before the meeting. So that's the summary of what happened. I will also be attending a USD board meeting next Monday representing the district in the evening for a similar presentation like we had tonight from the young people. And lastly, I just want to address a point that Director Gunther brought up about CalPERS investments, because I don't know if Director Huang went through this, but I did when I was a student at UC Berkeley, with students advocating to get out of all of the investments of the University of California. And by the time they, you know, most of the investments are in the Fortune 500 in the United States and Fortune 500 abroad. By the time that you socially exercise your discretion, if I can say that, as to where your investments go, you're down to like 10 companies out of the Fortune 500, because you can find an excuse on every single major corporation. And so I'm not very much in favor of that kind of social engineering when it comes to making investments. Even Director Kohler brought it up, you know, as far as our investments as an agency. because he had objections to certain companies that we were invested in, not naming them. But, you know, if you remove all the companies that are out there, then you don't have any return on investment. And so my question always as a student was, does everybody want to pay twice the fee to go to college?
Okay, thank you. That concludes. I made my comments earlier that referenced the meeting, so I have nothing more to add at this time.
If I could,
Yes, go ahead.
just one more. I was looking at the committee meetings, and I just wanted to double check the legal, the LICA committee meeting is normally on Wednesdays, but I see that next week it's on a Tuesday. I just wanted to double check that that is correct.
That is correct. We moved it because of the workshop yesterday. Normally it would have been yesterday.
Right.
So, yeah, it was...
I just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, we got the agenda from Brenda, just not too long ago.
I want to congratulate President Weed for conducting the shortest meeting in quite a long time.
I still want to request an agenda item, so.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion for, or do you have any other
I
items?
would like to request a future agenda item.
Yes, please.
I mentioned it last night at the board workshop, that years ago, we made a conscious decision to lower the 1.5 meter charge for a single-family home to the inch, based on the fact that these are being primarily installed for homes with sprinkler systems. This primarily affected Union City's, at the time, ordinance. And over the years, at the time we did that, it was appropriate. The difference in the service charge was only about $2. It wasn't significant. And we've never really readdressed it. Problem we have now is that service charge is now about $20 difference between the inch and the 3/4, 5/8 cost. So if you have a home with a sprinkler system, you're charged an inch rate, when in reality your water use may not come anywhere near what the capacity charge you're paying for is. The difficulty is, and this is the difficulty I'm having with this, is that some homes do utilize that capacity. And so what I would like, I understand it's going to cost us money. I think there may be some figures already being thrown out there. We're talking serious money here. A couple million a year. But I have some problem, and one of our constituents has been communicating with me regarding this. And I believe her water bill is probably less than mine. And yet, her service charge is $20 more than mine. And there's a fairness factor. Why does she have that service charge? Why does she have that meter? She's got 1.5 inches because she has a sprinkler system in her house.
As I understand, 20 years ago we equalized the facility connection charges. We did not address the monthly service charges. You're asking us to come back and review the monthly service charges, where the only requirement is for fire suppression in residences.
And we did drop it. We did, though, support the 1.5 inch is charged at the inch rate. So there is a discount. The problem is you still have a differential between the inch and the 3/4.
Well, the 5/8.
Well, the 5/8, 3/4 are the same. So, if I'm not mistaken.
The minimum was 5/8, but we're phasing those out.
And we're phasing them out. Right. Now, some of this will probably flow out possibly with AMI.
Yeah.
However, I would like us to start formally looking at this.
Okay, well, that goes to a committee first, or one or more committees, and then to the board.
Yeah, let me just make a quick comment. Director Gunther, we're going out currently for competitive bidding on a rate consultant. We've had Sanjay Gore for some time now. So we're just going out competitively. That's not to discredit him. We may go with him again. But we're looking at different services, and as part of that request for proposal, we are asking for a special study on the very issue that you're bringing up. Am I correct on that, John?
Yes, you're correct on that.
Okay, so it's going to be part of the next consulting exercise. It will be part of the contract to take a look at that and look at what's going on around the state of California, so we have some better data to work with.
Thank you. Any other business before the board? There being none, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Make the motion.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Time 8:25.